everyone, and welcome to the GIBS Flash Forum. My name is Kerrin Myres, and I'm here today with my colleague, Dr. Anastacia Mamabolo, and we're here to talk to you about hybrid entrepreneurship, which is also known as the side hustle. It refers to people who start and run businesses on the side while they are in full-time employment. Well, you might be thinking, this isn't new. People often make money out of their hobbies, don't they? Cake baking, woodworking. Well, yes and no. The side hustle can also be a formal structure, an established business, complete with employees. Actually, we used to think that the side hustle was a way of starting a new business. You started your business on the side while you were still employed until it was big enough to support you, at which time you transferred into that new business. But for many, the side hustle is a permanent way of life. In the recent past, side hustles have become increasingly common globally as a result of poor economic conditions and the rise of the gig economy. Some estimates suggest that as many as 27% of working South Africans have side hustles. And we think that side hustles are going to become even more of a way of life for South Africans from all walks of life, not just for the individual to supplement their earnings, but also to make a contribution to communities by solving social and environmental problems. To help kickstart, very importantly, the post-COVID economy. There are huge opportunities, but there are huge challenges too. And we have two guests, Tamela Chaka and Adrian van Eerden, who will tell us about their experiences. So if you're an employer, should you be worried about this? Don't side hustles drain employees' limited resources? Don't they eat into employers' time? Please feel free to post your questions on the chat line. Dr. A, tell us what the research says.
Thank you, Dr. K, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'll just be sharing briefly on the research reflections. So let me start by saying that hybrid entrepreneurship or side hustle entrepreneurship is an emerging area of research. And if we have researchers with us here, they must be very excited about this emerging field of research that they can try to theorize. So I think in our context, which is identified by resource scarcity, uncertainty, and I think the world today is standing on its feet because of the uncertain economic environment that we find ourselves in. And this presents a wonderful time to be theorizing about hybrid entrepreneurship or side hustle. But enough about the theory and the complex academic stuff. Let me try to simplify it. So when we look at what research is talking about, they start first by unpacking what side hustle is. So when we look at our environment, we've got the macro environment where we have many agents who are embedded in the macroeconomic environment, and we are also embedded in the very same environment. And in the macroeconomic environment, most agents, they work together to improving the economy. And as they do so, they create jobs. So the employers, they will create full-time jobs or different types of job settings. And as individuals, we are attracted to the jobs because we want to enhance our lives. We want to have social impact. Social impact meaning we want to contribute to the society. Openness to change. So we are attracted to job environments because as individuals, we're very creative, we're very innovative, and we just want to go out there and experiment and continue learning. And also we look for full-time employment so we can get personal stability, a sense of security that I have this job that's going to be able to take care of myself, my family, and other people who are around me. But the challenge with the macroeconomic environment is that it's not stable. So there is a very nice acronym that is used to describe the macroeconomic environment called the VUCA. VUCA talks about the macroeconomic environment being volatile, being unstable or ambiguous, being complex, and being very uncertain. So in the macroeconomic environment, as new developments come in, Dr. K touched on the gig economy. So we realize that the changing world of work is bringing new complexities to our employers. The introduction of technology, people wanting to work contract type of jobs or freelancing. So that present a different work challenge. Not does that only influence or impact on our full-time jobs, but it also present an opportunity. And that opportunity from research is called the side hustle. So now you find that there are now two people. So there's an employer and an employee. So what research is showing us at the moment, though it's still in the very nascent phase, is that there are spillovers from the employee side to the employer. So these spillovers, they mean that whatever that happens in one setting will affect the other setting. So whatever that I do in my side hustle will ultimately impact my job. So with regards to the spillovers, what we've learned is that there are positive and the negative spillovers. So most of the research previously focused on the negative spillovers, where they say that employees who are engaged in side hustle will have cognitive distraction, attention residue. When you go to work, you're already exhausted, so you're not able to contribute positively to the organization or to the work that you are doing. For instance, if you have a big client to manage and you've been working on your side hustle, when you come to work, you're not able to provide what the client desires. So that will impact on your performance as an individual and ultimately the performance of the organization. So that's why a lot of employers would be cautious allowing the employees to participate in the side hustles. So this has been a conversation that has been continuing for quite some time until recently, where we've learned about the positive spillovers from side hustle businesses. So this research, as they talk about the psychological impact of side hustle. So they're saying that when you own your business, you have a sense of freedom, a sense of making your own decision because you are owning this side hustle. So it gives you an opportunity to make decisions, to solve whatever problem that you are encountering on your own. And you can take all of those experiences and embed them in your job. And they talk about skills that side hustle improves the human capital of most of the employees, that whatever skills that you learn on your own, you're able to bring them into the work environment. And also another important aspect of it is empowerment, that in these days we live in the era where there's so many things that are happening around us, but employees who own side hustle were found to be happy, were found to be more enthusiastic, more creative, more content with what they're doing. And who doesn't want content employees? Everybody wants content and happy and innovative employees who feel like they have the sense of freedom, they are independent, they can make decisions on their own, of course, under the supervision of their managers. So we see that side hustling has got a positive effect on employees, and it actually contributes to the skills pool, it contributes to the mood of the environment or of the workplace, because when I engage with my employees, the spillover effect will also happen from me to my employees. So I'll share that positivity and creativity. And once I improve my own job design or whatever that I'm supposed to be doing at work, so ultimately that results to the organizational performance. And most employers will be very happy to know that an individual performance will contribute ultimately to the performance of the organization. So from us, we've realized that actually now the lens at which we've been viewing side hustle is changing. So it's more positive, it's more encouraging, and it's more encouraging for employees to continue or to start their own side hustle. And I think in this economy or during this time, there's so many opportunities that we'll talk about later that one can venture into. So enough with the academic stuff. So I think we've had a lot of that. So now we're going to be talking to Tamela Chaka. Tamela Chaka is known as Mr. Retail. Tamela Chaka is known as Mr. Retail. So he will be telling us about his side hustle experience. I think, Tamela, you can just start by telling us what you are doing in your business and why you decided to do it.
Right. Firstly, before I tell you what I do in my business, let me tell you what I do in my everyday 8 to 5, well, 8 to whatever time work ends, because work ends beyond 5 o'clock. So I had sales for Forex and investments at Nedbank Retail and Business Bank, and other interests that I have in terms of what I do aligns to my brand and what I do currently at work. Firstly, what I do in terms of other explorations of business, I'm into retail, which is clothing. We run a clothing brand called Be Kind Always, and Be Kind Always is linked to another business operation called Our Health, which is the O Foundation, where we go out and offer health services to the disadvantaged in townships and rural areas. And secondly, we also into private assets investments where we invest in the agri business. So we are into farming, and thirdly, I'm into academia as well. So I teach. I like to impart knowledge, and so those are three elements where I'm working, and besides working in the financial services banking sector.
Okay, thank you, Tamela. It sounds like you have got two opportunities that you're pursuing. One that brings economic impact and one that has social impact. So why did you decide to have this diversified type of businesses or side hustles?
My brand, Anastacia, runs on empowerment. I believe in empowering people that I live with. I believe in executing the, the mantra of kindness in everything that I do. So one thing I'm always out to do is solve social problems. How do we and my partners solve social problems? I'll give you an example. On the farm, we have employees. What we do is we have an employee uh, trust fund that the employees can then partake into. Further, we also educate the children of those employees and bring in a health segment part where we also offer health services to them as well. So we're trying to not only make money, but also leave an impactful element in terms of growth and how do we change society.
All right, thank you, Tamela. That's very nice of you. So I want to ask about the COVID-19. How is your businesses or side hustle finding relevance in this time?
Well, in terms of retail, obviously we're getting a massive hit. Our production is stuck as we speak, so therefore we're waiting for post-COVID lockdown for us to then distribute our clothing. In the health sector as well. We're not being able to go into the respective township and farming communities to then service them with our low cost health services. So it's been tough. It's hit hard, but our view is how do we then pivot and climatize to what might be the new norm, and that's what we're currently doing with my team, and also from a teaching basis. Is I'm learning now to also do teaching online, which is something new, and then how do we engage our students online, and which is also a new norm for most, because I'm used to having contact sessions in classrooms.
All right, thank you. So I think now a lot of employers want to know, is it possible for their employees to put the side hustle and the full-time job on a balance? So how do you balance your venture interests and also your full-time job?
Anastacia, I've been very cognizant and very clear of what I choose to do. What I do is always aligned to my own personal brand and the brand that I actually engage with. So as you see what I do, it's education, health, financial services, investing. But there's a common thread there that we invest in various segments, and in investing, we have a social element that also creates value. And I've seen that what I do in my own personal space has made growth or given me growth in what I do at work. I work in the retail and business banking, and people that I actually encounter with mainly are, let's look at the health sector. We are touching people in the informal markets in terms of what we do with health. The core of my job is finding investments and opportunities in informal sector. So concurrently, I'm getting data for myself to better my day-to-day 8 to 5 employment, as I'm also creating value on the side for people that are service and creating value for myself and my partners.
So I think it is good to see that your business interests, they also fit into what you are doing at work. And so you're able to contribute to your work environment because of what you do on the side from your side hustles. So what are some of the key critical skills that one would need to be able to put a side hustle on a balance and also to start a side hustle to make it work? So what are some of those critical skills?
Before I touch on skills, I'm gonna touch on one thing. The critical value that I think most people should have is that
Yes.
what you do should be aligned to the core of your values and brand. When you get that part right, there's never a conflicting view in terms of what you do. Secondly, I would rather do stuff that collaborate with my employer than conflict with my employer. Therefore, I'm actually at work 24 hours. I love what I do. I've learned from the Chinese. I used to go to China a lot in 2016, 17, and there I learned that Chinese work 20 hours a day, and they enjoy themselves, and they're still effective at work, and nobody is tired because what they do for the 20 hours is what they love. So back to the skills. I believe that one needs to be brave. I say it all the time in my social media platform: be daring, be brave, dream. If you have those three qualities for me as a person, as an employee, an entrepreneur, that becomes a base for you to explore. And secondly, don't be scared to fail. Things will not always work out. Don't be scared to fail. And lastly, don't be scared to have difficult conversations. People shy away from side hustles because they're scared to engage employers, to put things on the table. You don't always have to compete with your employer. Find a way to collaborate.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tamela. We'll come back later to you, but you've got a lovely comment. So it says, I love that he is so clear about what his personal brand is and that all is aligned to that. Consistency is powerful. So well done to you. So I'll hand over to Dr. Kerrin Myres.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Adrian van Eerden, who is the Chief Information Officer at GIBS, which you would think was more than a full-time job, Adrian. So how come a side hustle as well?
Yes, thanks, Kerrin. Yes, I guess being the CIO at GIBS in a sector which is changing so radically, and even more so in the last month or two, is way more than a full-time job. My responsibilities range from traditional IT to the digitization of our learning, if you want to use the cliches. My team is very much involved in helping GIBS do the transition that we need to do to address the coronavirus. And truth be told, most of us haven't seen a weekend for probably the last 2 months. So it's a good question. Why a side hustle? maybe quickly, what did I do? Is it a side hustle? I suppose it depends what you call it. Probably about 3 years ago, I've been at GIBS about 10 years, and about 3 years ago, a couple of, shall we say, life-challenging moments happened to my wife and myself. My wife is in education. She worked in corporate L&D, consulting, doing system training. And we've got 2 children, and we had the usual challenges with our children's learning, and that most of us have in some way or the other. One day, my wife, I beg your pardon?
I said, especially now.
Oh, these days. And obviously working at GIBS makes you, I think, a lot more cognizant of some of the challenges in education that our children have as well, both maybe in the privileged and the underprivileged areas of South Africa. So anyway, we at one point my wife just decided as an experiment to knock together an online learning module of one of my child's curricula, and he is, we still deny it, but he has been diagnosed as ADD. And he rolls around the floor with his books and the dogs, and we wonder what he gets done. And he sat on this module for 2 hours. Actually, we forgot he was there. And it was a natural sciences module. And he went and wrote this exam, and he got 10% more than he normally gets.
Wow.
There's a variety of other things going on, and I think obviously getting more and more interested in education as I work with GIBS. We decided, you know what the heck, let's give it a go. This is an important area to be in. There's a lot that you can contribute, particularly in South Africa and in Africa. And we decided we would take the risk. My wife resigned her job, and we started an online, we'll call it extra lesson business called Minecraft Learning, self-funded for now. And that's where we're at. Have I been able to maintain my commitment to the business during Corona, the COVID crisis? Not as much. I think GIBS still has my heart. My wife is running most of the business. She's what I suppose you could call the executive partner in the business. And we do have part-time employees and staff that we bring in to assist with some of the work. But it's a good distraction, and I think it's got a very positive parallel to what I do at GIBS.
You were telling me, Adrian, that actually your employer benefits from what you're learning in your side hustle.
GIBS, I believe so, and I find that I'm able to perform my job a lot more effectively through what happens within our business. How would I say this? So as a CRO, I think a traditional CRO, and even in a dynamic place like GIBS, you have a relatively conservative role, and you have a managerial and leadership role to play. And a lot of what you achieve is through the people that you lead and the people that you develop. I'm an engineer by training, I guess, and so I sometimes miss having sort of getting my hands dirty, and having a business on the side where I'm able to practice some of the technical stuff, which is for me more of a hobby. It's just a hobby, and what's quite nice, I think, what maybe for GIBS is that that tinkering that I do in our side hustle, if we call it that, is all learning that I would probably not have done had I just had the one job. And I bring that back to GIBS, and I bring it back to the team, and I'm willing to bet that most of my team dread Monday mornings. Because in comes Adrian after tinkering on the weekend with have you tried a D-da-da, this widget, this is, I get these eyeball rolls. But it's very difficult because they're both jobs are great fun and very rewarding. So I think that side certainly there's a benefit. There's a couple of other things that I think probably also have helped me. One of the perspective changes, if you want, is having a skin in the game. Where you know, as I mentioned, we're totally self-funded at this point, and when you've got your own skin in the game, you have a very, very different view of how you run your business. Whether it's risk averse or not, I think we're taking quite a lot of risks, more risks than I probably would as GIBS' CIO. Those employees at GIBS would be happy to know. But it does make you understand why people make the decisions they do in larger organizations. You know, you understand the shareholders, you understand the directors and the exco, and it makes it easier to empathize with them, which I found very useful. And then the other thing I found in a small business is that you have to be the jack of all trades. So you're the marketer, you're the accountant, you're the technologist, you name it, the HR person, and even though I have worked in smaller businesses before, you tend to forget that when you get to a certain size, and you forget what's going on on the other side of the fence. And I found having to do that has given me a whole lot more empathy for my colleagues across the business, because suddenly I remember what it was like to have to chase debt or deal with problems, staff issues, or it's. And not just to this isolated silo that you're stuck in. That's just IT. So I think a lot of benefit.
Adrian, what would be the one piece of advice you would give to somebody thinking about starting a side hustle?
Yeah, the one. Don't listen to the MBAs.
You shouldn't be saying that. No.
Everyone's going to give you advice. I love what Tamela said about alignment. If you found something you're passionate about, if your job is your hobby, I say go for it, right? You can take a few risks, right? I mean, don't sue me if you take a risk and fail, please. But most of the entrepreneurs that I know have failed many, many times before they succeeded, or maybe they're still failing. But they're so passionate, and don't listen to the naysayers. Be pragmatic. I think a good entrepreneur takes a calculated risk. This is the second business I've started, so I'm hoping I don't have 9 more to go before I succeed. But everyone's going to give you advice, and everyone's going to tell you why your business model is going to fail, and why you don't have a business model, and the blah, blah, blahs, and the ROIs, and the hana. But if you're passionate, I think and you got a good cause, I think you can, you've got to do it. You've got to try. You'll always regret not trying it at the end of the day.
Great. Thanks, Adrian. I wonder, you did mention earlier that you are self-funded. Last question. Yes. Does that mean you had kind of a pile of gold sitting somewhere that you could tap into? How do you make this work in practice?
It's a runway that we've had to watch very carefully. I mentioned the previous business. The last business I had was funded through equity, and we gave away a lot of control. We gave away a lot of our purpose. This time, I think what we're doing, we really believe in. We really want to push it into the underprivileged communities. Am I still there?
Yes, you're still there.
Okay, I seem to have lost. I don't know what's on my screen now, but someone's looking at our website. It was a bit strange.
I think we've been Zoom bombed.
Yeah, they're staring. That was a Sogran, I bet you. They got a bit distracted there. The question. So I've dug deep. We both have. My wife. We were a dual income family with 2 children. We downscaled everything because we really believed it. My team won't go for a drive in my car because it's a little Toyota. lifestyle adjustments, all of that, just to keep the runway going. We were lucky enough to have some assets that we could call on. It's not an endless runway, but I did try to keep equity. I wanted to hold on to equity until we have, we say, enough momentum that we get to call the shots. I suspect at some point in time I'm going to have to start looking for equity partners, but I don't want this to turn into some sort of a push the stocks PE ratio investment game. For us, it's about making a big difference.
Great, thank you so much. We've got a few questions I'd like to just pose to the panelists. I want to go back to Tamela. Tamela, a question here. Should my side hustle be similar to my job? What do you think?
I don't think you are obliged to have it to be similar. I think it's something that if as Adrian said, passion. It is something that can keep you going and something that you're truly passionate about. I chose that everything I do must be aligned. Therefore, I can then manage my own campus of knowing that I am on my true north and not diverting and doing a lot of stuff that are not going to align to what I do. And through mentorship, I've been taught and been made to be clear around what my values and brand values stand for. And that's what keeps me going. And that's why most of my side hustles are aligned to my personal brand and the values that I live with.
Right, great. And I guess related to this, Adrian, is the question of does your employer need to know about your side hustle? What do you think?
I think it's only ethically correct. I approached our executive right at the beginning of this. I did expect the response I got, which is massively supportive. But I think if you don't have their blessing, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you. You need the blessing, and if you don't, then you've got to make a decision about whether or not the side hustle is more important. Fortunately, I think GIBS is thoroughly supportive of this kind of venture.
And any comments from you, Tamela, on that issue?
I think the employer I work for has got many entrepreneurial individuals in the bank, and as long as we're running stuff that are linked to what can empower Nedbank, I've not had my immediate superior having an issue with it. I've also found that they've been quite supportive in what I do, because it's also having an overflow in terms of the business that we do.
And I'd like to ask you both, if your side hustle can afford you, then why are you still working full time?
Can I pick that up first?
Please.
Yeah.
People think that you are your side hustle. Beyond a side hustle, you still have your own personal brand that you also running. You still have your own aspirations of what and who you want to be. I love what I do in everything that I touch. So there's no obligation for me to pick one. If I can do all of them and create value in all of them, that's what I'm gonna do. And yes, I wanna create value in terms of my side hustles, but I also wanna build myself a corporate career. We don't know what 2024 holds, 2030 holds, but as of today, that's what I do. I want to create financial solutions for the informal markets, for them to work, but I also want to be able to do other stuff that create value in the same segment as well.
Adrian?
Yeah, I think so. I come from corporate, and I found myself probably a bit of a square peg in a round hole during the corporate life. I've loved being at GIBS my entire career at GIBS of 10 years, and there's no immediate intention of exiting while I can add value to the institution. We do amazing things. I think during the next few months and years after things level out with COVID, I think GIBS is going to play an absolutely fundamental role in supporting this country and maybe further north into Africa. And who wouldn't want to be a part of that? It's a very constructive and positive place to be. So no big intentions of leaving GIBS at all. I think the advantage of having the other side of the market is that I get to do maybe the same on a smaller scale. It would be nice to make it a larger scale, but maybe I can make a small contribution to what's going on at the schools. And we're finding that at the moment. Yeah, and it's very rewarding for someone like myself. I think, again, as Timo says, is very, very aligned in terms of what my passions are. And seeing people grow, whether they're children or grown-ups, and succeed and become great people, it's just got to be one of the greatest things that you can achieve.
The final question is really that a lot of the comments and the chats and the questions are relating to kind of a skepticism that employers would get any value at all from employees being involved in side hustles. Any comments about that, Adrian, and then Tamela, and then I'm going to hand over to Dr. A to wrap up.
So I think I loved what Dr. A said about the energy, the positive side, because I certainly find myself more motivated and enthusiastic by my experience. I think if you were to ask a number of our executives and people who work with me whether I have benefited, I've been in very difficult situations where we've had to actually help out pro bono. So you know, someone gets sick in a smaller institution. It's very difficult to keep those apart, and but those skills are, you know, they're in here, and I can use them. I can use them for GIBS as well.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I'm trying to think how I would put this. It's re-energized myself, and it's given me a whole new set of tools, which I can sort of add to the GIBS arsenal if you want.
Tamela?
I think he's gone.
Well, from my side, I always think if I was an exec, would I have a problem if one of my team members had a side hustle? I think for me, it's a fundamental of if that side hustle is going to improve the individual, because certain times we look at we think things might, or only look at the negative views. I choose to look at the positive views, because side hustles for me improve the individual themselves as a business person. For me, it creates somebody that is vulnerable enough to know when they're making mistakes, to know when things are not going well, but also to be able to have foresight in terms of how the P&L runs, how the whole business runs. Because not only do they look at one line of a business, they look at the entire segments of business. Like Adrian said, you become jack of all trades, because you're forced to be able to understand the entire business value chain and what keeps shareholders awake. So if I can have 20 people that understand what keeps shareholders awake, it means in my business, they will know what keeps me awake. And therefore, I'll definitely be benefiting from them doing that.
Great. So I think my last words would really be, it sounds like from Adrian and Tamela, if you're thinking of starting a side hustle, you should be finding opportunities that are aligned to your values. You really need to love what you're doing. Stick to something you know, but don't compete with your employer, and be totally honest about what you're doing and when. And be prepared to experiment, because you can move faster than your employer can. and big companies can, and you can try out things until you hit the jackpot. Over to Dr. A to wrap up.
This has been the most interesting session I've had today. And I see one, yeah. So I see there is one question and aligned with some of the things that we research on Dr. K. So it says, how do you see the concept of entrepreneurship in companies and if it spurs new ideas? So yes, absolutely. So corporate entrepreneurship is one of the emerging area of research, and we've seen that it actually contributes not only to the individual's performance, but to the overall organizational performance, because managers encourage their employees to come up with new ideas and to take risks. But with regards to taking risks, it really depends on the industry. Some of the industries, they don't allow risk taking that much. For instance, one study that we did on banking industry realized that risk taking in banking industry is not that well encouraged. Because can you just imagine if you were to take a risk and you deposit R1 million into somebody else's account by mistake? So it really depends on the kind of industry, but overall innovativeness is encouraged, and corporate entrepreneurship does create an opportunity for employees to come up with new ideas. So let me find one last question that we can answer before we close off. Yeah. So does your employee need to know? Yes, absolutely yes. And we've saw another question on conflict of interest. So the most important thing is to disclose whatever that you're doing, so you'll be able to manage the conflict of interest. You need to talk to your employer. So if your employer doesn't know and there is potential of conflict of interest, you're going to end up in trouble. So make sure that you disclose and you even understand the policy of your organization in terms of disclosing businesses that employees are engaged in. So that is very important. So, and I think that COVID-19 is presenting us with a lot of opportunities to start side hustles. So let us just have a look at this last slide that we've prepared for today. So when we look at our slide here, so we're saying that post-COVID-19, of course, there will be opportunities for social and economic impact side hustles. So most of these are going to come up from the online platform. So it doesn't matter the industry, but people will try to make sure that they are offered on different platforms. For instance, education, people can go into tutoring. We're not saying you are a qualified teacher, you just be a tutor. So you can just do online mentoring. Food and drinks, we've seen in South Africa that people are starting to cook and sell their food to their friends and other people. So we're seeing that there are so many opportunities that are going to come up. Administration, for instance, we've seen on social media that just one tweet can just land a small enterprise in trouble. So we'll see a lot of people coming up as social media managers for the SMEs. So doing the tax for SMEs, retail. So we're seeing a lot of people trying to sell products via online platforms. So that is obviously is going to grow. And transportation, where you can hire you can rent your car. Some people here with the issue of Uber coming into place, and actually a lot of employees were doing Uber as side hustle. So we're seeing a lot of people involved in different industries, and most of them being rendered on the online platform. And of course, Airbnb is a question for now because of the travel bans and obviously tourism, but that does not mean that one in a later stage can start a side hustle in that. So we think that there's so many opportunities that are going to come up. This is just a brief overview of what someone can venture into, but there will be so many opportunities after COVID-19, because our research shows us that there is a possibility of new venture emergence after disasters. So things will be hopeful for us. Thank you. And on this note, we'd like to end up our session for today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye.